the objections to the death penalty being enforced. I'm Mark Stewart. In the last video, I talked about why I'm fervently for a death penalty being on the books and being enforced often. Not all the time, but often. Now, two objections. They're related. I think only one of them is really, really strident. I'll take on the least important of them. That there is a disparity in race of who is sentenced to death, and that has been true in the United States. I believe that in the last 4 decades, it is not a race-based disparity, but an economic disparity. And so poorer people, less educated people, having worse counsel, don't know their options, are the ones that are sent to the worst sentences more often. That's not any longer a race-based thing. And if anything, we can, because we're very sensitive to being of racial animosity, have extra scrutiny over whether this verdict is right, whether this guy maybe has exculpatory evidence, and keeping him from the ultimate penalty. We can do this. It's related to the number one objection, that we might make mistakes. So it is searing to think that somebody could go to the death following a mistaken verdict. But if we have the certainty that juries do, and have the scrutiny that hasn't always been done, that has been lax in crime labs and prosecutorial labs, and even in clemency panels, maybe not looking thoroughly enough, I think we really, really minimize. Could there still be a mistake? Yes. Does that mistake outweigh the many people who would be not sentenced properly, and even worse, the many people who are murdered afterwards because of a wrongful excuse? Okay? A wrong non-conviction can happen too. And now the murderer, predisposed to do it again, has put other people's lives in jeopardy. We have the power to make that balance, and I think the balance is absolutely extraordinary in favor of only true criminals getting the death sentence. When you have many levels, appeals, prosecutorial discretion, judicial judge discretion, and a clemency panel, and in many states a governor beyond that with beyond a clemency recommendation. Somebody who goes 0 for 5 over 2 or 3 years to scrutinize all the evidence that could be there, highly, highly unlikely in this day and age. Past is past. We are better than the past. We are more sensitive to the value of life and to the problems of the past to keep those problems from continuing. In the interest of true justice and less death, less mayhem, we should have a death penalty that's enforced. Please remember, the harm of one murderer is not just to the one victim, not even to the victim's family alone. It is to all of society who has to be on the lookout, who has to fear, who has to think they might be next. That's what having murderers about does. Deterrence is the thing that the death penalty does second best. First best is it gets the perp off the streets forever, off of fellow inmates forever. Because remember, if you have a life sentence, you're still in an open prison where there's no consequence if you whack a fellow prisoner, because they can't put you to death. If you're serving a life sentence, you have nothing to lose. You should have something to lose. I'm Mark Stewart.